Sleep or decay? What happens when you don't rest? The modern paradox of rest. We live in an age that worships exhaustion. People brag about sleeping 4 hours as if fatigue were a medal of honor. But behind the caffeine smiles and glowing screens, something inside the brain begins to rot. The hidden pain of modern life is this: the harder we work, the weaker we become, because while you chase productivity, your brain is quietly drowning in its own waste. Imagine it: a sleepless city, every light on, every neuron buzzing, but the streets flooded with trash that no one cleans. That's what your brain becomes when you skip sleep. A city that never shuts down, but slowly collapses from within. Science calls it the glymphatic system, your brain's night janitor. It's the silent mechanism that flushes out toxins, restores clarity, and literally keeps you sane. But it only works while you rest. When you don't, waste proteins build up. Beta amyloid, tau, the same ones linked to Alzheimer's. You're not just tired. You're intoxicated by your own brain. You think you're just pushing through one more deadline, one more night. But the truth, you're pushing your neurons toward decay, and that raises the question no one wants to ask. What happens to a mind that never sleeps? Let's open the gates and see what happens inside the brain that forgets how to rest. In 2013, researchers at the University of Rochester discovered something remarkable. They found that the brain has its own cleaning system, a hidden network that works only when you sleep. They called it the glymphatic system. It's like a silent janitor that appears when the city goes dark. During deep sleep, waves of cerebrospinal fluid flow through the brain, washing away toxins that build up while you're awake, waste like beta amyloid and tau, proteins that, when left behind, are linked to Alzheimer's and cognitive decline. Every night you sleep, your brain quite literally detoxifies itself. Every night you don't, it begins to corrode. The paradox is cruel. The more you fight fatigue, the dirtier your mind becomes. The more you force yourself to stay awake, the more you cloud your own thoughts. That's why you can't outwork exhaustion. Because tiredness isn't a sign of weakness. It's a biological signal that your neurons are drowning in debris. You can silence the signal with caffeine, light, or noise. But the mess keeps growing, so how do you stop it? You build a shutdown ritual. A small sequence that tells the body it's safe to power down. Dim the blue lights, step away from caffeine after midday, reduce the mental noise before sleep. Because the brain doesn't rest by command. It rests by permission. Skipping sleep isn't a badge of discipline. It's a form of self-poisoning. The truth is simple and brutal. When you refuse to rest, your mind starts to rot in silence, and the decay doesn't stop there. It steals something even more precious: your memories. If your brain could speak, would it thank you or beg you to stop? At Harvard's sleep lab, scientists discovered something unsettling. Your brain can't store memories without sleep. During REM, the hippocampus, your brain's temporary drive, transfers memories to the cortex, where they become stable and long-term. But when you skip sleep, that process collapses. It's like trying to save files on a computer whose hard drive is full. You press save, but nothing stays. Matthew Walker from UC Berkeley showed that just one sleepless night can cause a 40% drop in memory formation. 40%. It's not that you forget. It's that your brain never got the chance to remember in the first place. You wake up foggy, lost in fragments of thought, convinced you just need more coffee. But what's really happening is far darker. Your mind is slipping into limbo, unable to separate what matters from what doesn't. There's a way to reverse this, though a simple habit called the sleep sandwich method. Study or learn something, sleep, then review it. That middle layer of rest is where your brain decides what stays. Every dream is a librarian sorting the chaos of your day. Without that librarian, the books burn. And yet, we keep glorifying sleeplessness as if it were proof of ambition. The truth is the opposite. When you stay awake too long, your prefrontal cortex, the part that makes decisions, regulates emotion, and holds discipline, begins to shut down. Harvard medical studies show that after 17 hours awake, your brain functions like it's under the influence of alcohol. Stay up 24 hours and you're cognitively drunk. You think you're working harder, but you're just becoming less intelligent, more emotional, and more reactive. That's the fake productivity trap, the illusion that more hours mean more progress. In reality, it's biological collapse disguised as commitment. The fix isn't to work less, it's to work rhythmically. The brain runs in cycles. 90 minutes of focus, 20 minutes of rest. These are called ultradian rhythms, and when you honor them, performance becomes sustainable. But most people ignore the body's rhythm. They push past the signal, chasing control, until control itself disappears. The question isn't how long you can stay awake. It's how long your mind can survive pretending it doesn't need to sleep. And that brings us to something deeper. What happens inside the world of dreams, when the unconscious begins to speak? In the silent hours of night, the mind builds worlds. Dreams are not random noise. They are architecture. During REM sleep, your brain becomes an artist and an engineer at once. Neural networks light up in patterns that don't exist when you're awake, linking distant ideas, testing emotions, rewriting memories. This is where creativity is born, not in focus, but in freedom. Carl Jung called dreams the theater of the unconscious. To him, every image, every symbol, was a fragment of yourself trying to speak. The parts you ignore during the day, your fears, your instincts, your forgotten desires, all rise in the dark, wearing masks only you can decode. That's why dreams matter. They are not escape, they are communication, a private dialogue between you and the parts of your mind that only speak in silence. Some of the greatest minds understood this. Salvador Dali used to hold a key in his hand as he napped. When he drifted just deep enough to lose consciousness, the key would fall, hit the floor, and wake him. In that instant, the border between wake and sleep, he captured visions that became his art. That micro-dream, that sliver of REM, was his portal to creativity. You can do the same in simpler ways. Keep a dream journal. The moment you wake, before touching your phone, write down what you saw, what you felt, even if it makes no sense. Over time, patterns emerge. Fears repeating, ideas evolving, symbols calling for attention. Your unconscious is not your enemy. It's your neglected ally. But here's the paradox. When you deny yourself rest, you deny yourself that dialogue. You silence the part of the mind that creates, heals, and integrates who you are. Nietzsche once warned that he who cannot rest will never create. And that warning was not poetic. It was prophetic. Because the opposite of sleep isn't wakefulness, it's decay. The body starts to break down. Inflammation rises, immunity weakens, cells age faster. The sleepless brain becomes efficient but soulless, a machine that produces without meaning. The very thing we chase, productivity, becomes the reason we fade. To rest, then, is not to escape life. It's to regenerate it, to step back into the rhythm nature wrote into your biology. Sleep is not surrender. It's rebellion, a quiet act of resistance against the decay of meaning. When was the last time you truly rested? Not just slept, but healed. Sleep or decay? The choice sounds simple, but it's the deepest one you make every night. Because the brain lives between two forces, gold and rot, renewal or ruin. And every time you close your eyes, you decide which side you belong to. When you rest, the brain restores itself. Neurons reconnect. Emotions stabilize. Creativity reignites. You wake not just rested, but rebuilt. When you don't, the process reverses. Cells inflame, memory fades, judgment fractures. The body stays alive, but the mind begins to die in fragments too small to notice. Carl Jung once said, "To sleep is to dialogue with the parts of yourself that only speak in darkness." And Nietzsche added, "He who has a why can bear almost any how." These aren't contradictions. They're reminders that rest is not a luxury. It's meaning in motion. Because sleep isn't a pause from life. It's the continuation of it in another language. One written in symbols, silence, and renewal. So the next time you feel guilty for resting, remember this. You're not wasting time. You're rebuilding the mind that gives time its value. Success isn't about endurance. It's about clarity. Focus isn't born from effort. It's born from recovery. And your purpose can't survive if your body keeps burning its fuel for the illusion of progress. Protect your rest like you protect your mission. Guard your nights like you guard your dreams. Because, as neuroscientist Matthew Walker reminds us, the shorter your sleep, the shorter your life. So tonight, when the world keeps running, stop. Turn off the noise. Let the city inside you go dark. Not because you're lazy, but because you're choosing to wake up, truly awake, in the morning, sleep or decay. The decision and the consequence are both yours. If this made you rethink rest, share it with someone who wears exhaustion like pride. And before you scroll, close your eyes. Your brain has work to do.